Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Uncommon Sense with Jose Negron. Now, for the benefit of those of you who are not familiar with the channel or watching this channel for the first time, the reason why it's called Uncommon Sense because here on this platform, we discuss everyday issues where we try to find logical solutions. But not everyone uses logic. So, for that reason, it is called Uncommon Sense. I want to let everybody know that I'm currently live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. I also want to let everyone know that the subscribe button has been enabled but for 5 minutes. Meaning, if you're not a subscriber and if you wish to enter a comment in the chat, you have to be a subscriber for these 5 minutes. As always, I want to start by giving a huge shout out to all those who already subscribed to the channel. Whether you've been there from day one or recently joined the Uncommon Folk, I really appreciate all the love and all the support that you continue to give me. It really touched my heart, and I'm glad to see that you value the content that I try to provide. Also, I want to give a huge shout out to all those who follow me on social media, whether it be, especially when it comes to Instagram and TikTok. Your considered support is greatly appreciated. I also want to give a huge shout out to all those who allow me to enter into your devices and all those who watch from the clouds, even the haters. So, what I'm going to ask you to do is, you have not done so, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe, like, and set the notification to all. So, therefore, whenever I do produce content, you will have the opportunity to catch it live or catch it on the playback. Okay. So, as you can see, by the thumbnail, the title of the tonight's stream is "What is Grief?" Now, truthfully, I have discussed it on other streams, but um, it's something that we need to discuss because, unfortunately, death is a part of the life process, and we're all going to experience death uh, many times before we, in turn, go to our final destination. But before we get into this, to the main topic, we're gonna have another episode of In My Words. Uh, First of all, I just want to express my deepest love and deepest appreciation to all those who express condolences regarding the passing of my nephew, Jimmy Santiago. Now, for those of you who do not know what happened, he passed away um, this past Monday from pneumonia. I don't have all the details. All I know that he was recently hospitalized and that apparently he was in the hospital due to his injuries and he passed away. He was in his late 40s, so he's very young. And the fact of the matter is, and this is something that we all must bear in mind, that tomorrow is not promised to anyone, okay? That every day that each one of us receives, we should do everything in our power to try to make a positive influence, not just in our lives, but in the lives of others, okay? We owe it to ourselves and we owe it to those who are no longer with us that we need to value each every day. And it really touched my heart, um, the amount of warmth and support I've received, not just on my social media, but also here on this platform. and outside of this platform as well. It really does makes the grieving process a little bit easier to deal with. Um, I wish I can say that we won't have to continue to deal with it, but at various points in our lives, um, as we get older, we're going to see more and more people um, go to their final reward. Um, some because of advanced age, others because of tragic circumstances, others because of the poor health choices that people have made. Okay. And one thing I continue to share and continue to think that if you have some sort of grievance or some sort of alienation from a loved one, do your best to try to reconcile with that person. In all fairness, it takes two people to want to have the desire to reconcile, but it doesn't mean that you cannot at least offer the first olive branch. Okay. After that, if the person does not reciprocate and that person does die, at least you can deal with the loss knowing that you did try to reconcile with that person who has been estranged. Now, it does take two people to want to be reconciled. And the fact of the matter is, not everyone will be willing to do so, but at least try. After that, you know, there's not much you can do. And sometimes people are hesitant to do so because partly because there's a lot of damage, psychological damage done. Also, pride plays a role in this. I would suggest that you try to put your ego in check, and if you can, at least make the attempt to reconcile with that person. Because once that person does um, depart, there is no chance of a reconciliation. So that's my take. Now, another thing that's been happening on social media these days is they're talking about a 1 day strike on Wednesday, February the 14th, regarding the drivers of multiple car shares, such as Lyft, Uber, and other car shares. And the issue behind that has to do with wages. Okay. So, I mean, these are companies like uh, Lyft and Uber and other such companies. They make a large amount of money. Okay, we don't know how much they do make, but it's safe to say that they become very rich in providing a mode of transportation that many people take advantage of. One thing that we need to understand when it comes to these drivers who drive these vehicles is that there are many costs involved in order to perform their jobs. First of all, among the among first of all, they're gonna have to like pay money for gasoline. Also, um, they may have to pay for tolls. Also, there's also the upkeep of their vehicles. Make sure that their vehicles are functioning well. There may be also a type of insurance that they have to pay for. They have to pay premiums, and also car notes. So these drivers they have a lot of expenses in order to maintain their vehicles, and they maintain that they're not earning enough. So, as a form of protest, basically what's going to happen, many drivers of with Lyft and Uber are not going to pick up passengers that day as a form of protest, to bring attention to their cause. Now, what does that mean? Um, you might have to rely on other modes of transportation to get from point A to point B. Okay. And if you do happen to find someone who's not protesting, whether it be a driver from Uber or Lyft or any other type of car share service, it would be to your best interest, um, just to give them the courtesy and respect that they do, and maybe give her a big tip. Good evening, William Brooklyn. Thank you very much for stopping by. So, um, what's my view on the situation? Um, I think everyone has a right to earn a decent living. Okay, and again, we have to bear in mind that there are many expenses that these drivers have to pay in order to maintain their vehicles. I mean, because let's keep it real. We want to get into a vehicle that's clean, that's safe, and get us from point A to point B. So just something to bear in mind. Um, I'm not going to say don't take advantage of these, don't use these services on Valentine's Day. All I'm saying is just bear that in mind. You might have to wait a significant more time in order to get a driver. That's all I'm going to say. And if you do find a driver, make sure that you are they're very polite, courteous, and make sure you leave a healthy tip for these people. So, with that being said, we're going to get into the main topic. Now, as I stated previously, the topic is what is grief? Okay. And it is something that we all going to deal with, um, at various points of our life. Okay. And grief can occur, um, in many ways and shapes and forms. Let me just state, okay. Let's define what is grief, because here we don't just talk about a problem. We define the problem and then we try to find solutions. The definition of grief is as follows: grief is a natural response to loss. It's the emotional suffering you feel when something or someone you love is taken away. Often, the pain of loss can be overwhelming. You may experience all kinds of difficult and unexpected emotions, from shock or anger to disbelief and profound sadness. And you can experience grief in many ways. One way you experience grief when a loved one dies, whether it be a parent, whether it be a spouse, whether it be children, whether it be other loved ones or close friends. Okay, that's one way you can experience grief. Another way you experience grief is when a marriage or a romantic relationship ends. Okay, and you experience loss because you have devoted a great deal of time and energy invested into a relationship, and then only to realize that you do not have that person in your life for multiple reasons. Okay. You can also experience grief when it comes to being terminated from your employer. Okay. The fact that you've been considered expendable and that you're not earning your wages and what have you. And there's always the uncertainty of when you're going to find gain employment. So those are some examples of how you can experience grief. Now, before I continue, let me let everybody know that the link to join the panel has been pinned. All of you are more than welcome to hit that link and express your opinions regarding this topic. Okay, you agree or disagree. Just let's try to keep it cordial, and let's try to be mutually respectful. And again, as always, is this your first time here and you never appeared on the platform? If we should introduce you on the platform, I will ask that you come up in the backstage. And the reason why, to make sure that you do not flash anything inappropriate, which will cause the people of YouTube to take down this stream. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to discuss the 7 stages of grief. And what we're going to do is go into details regarding what is each stage. Okay. And the 7 stages of grief is shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, testing, and acceptance. So, and we all going to experience these stages of grief um, at different points. I mean, it's not like, and there's no like logical process as far as which 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 part of the grief process we will experience first. It's just that we will experience some part of the grief process. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the first phase of the grief process, which is shock. Grief can be a difficult and a messy process. When a loss occurs, one of the first things you may experience is shock. Even when you anticipate a loss, like the death of a loved one with a terminal illness, it can still be surprising and distressing. That's because no one can truly be prepared for a loss so significant. Consequently, when you are in shock after a loss, you may behave normally or as if nothing has happened. Most of the time, this is because your body has not processed the loss yet. You may feel like the situation hasn't sunk in yet. You might also experience numbness or a sense of detachment from what has happened. These feelings and expectations are self protective mechanisms that act as a buffer so that you are not overwhelmed all at once. That is the first stage of grief. The second stage of grief is denial. Because the death of a loved one can have such a significant impact on you, you might experience denial. During this stage of grief, it is simply too hard for your brain to comprehend that your family member, friend, or other loved one is gone. Denial is your brain's way of spacing out your feelings of grief, allowing you to acknowledge and experience only what you can handle in that moment. As you slowly begin to accept the loss and what it means for your life, your denial will begin to diminish. When denial resolves, you may have a broader range of feelings and emotions. Okay, so the next phase is anger. Now, let me just state for so there be no misunderstanding. There is no right way or wrong way to grieve. Everyone experiences grief in different ways. Others are very demonstrative. Others tend to keep it with bottle up. Okay, so I want to make that perfectly clear. While it's completely normal to feel angry after the death of a loved one or the loss of someone important to you, may feel confused or even embarrassed by these feelings. In these cases, it will be tempting to squash, internalize, or even ignore your feelings. But they still exist and will likely manifest themselves in some way. You may also be surprised to learn that you direct your anger at the person or thing that was lost. In certain situations, you'll feel angry with the healthcare providers, your friends and family members, or even God or any other spiritual beings you believe in. But under all the anger is your pain, and while it may be uncomfortable to deal with, it provides you with more structure into your grieving that we may know. Okay. Good evening, Julio Shabbat. I think this is your first time here. Welcome to Uncommon Sense with Jose Negron. The topic for tonight is what is grief? Okay, so at this point, I'm just talking about the phases of grief. It's something that we all, we don't want to experience, but we do experience it from time to time, particularly as we get older. Okay, and we see more and more of our loved ones passing away. Okay, the next okay. Um, okay, I don't know. Okay, all right. If you're okay, the next phase of grief is bargaining. If you're having feelings of guilt, shame, or blame, your experience may fit into the bargaining stage of grief. During these times, people often feel helpless and hopeless and ask themselves, what if questions? You may feel guilty for not doing more to keep them um, the loss from happening or not spending more time at the person you have lost. During the bargaining stage, it's common to wonder to say, I should have done this, or if I have only done that. While these type of doubts are normal, they are not where you want your thought process to remain. It is impossible to go back and behave differently or change the circumstances surrounding your loss. Good evening, Don Amando. Thank you very much for stopping by. The topic for tonight is what is grief. So at this point, I'm discussing, the seven phases of grief. At this point, I'm talking about bargaining. Okay. Instead, try thinking about all you did do to try to help your loved ones and the good memories you have with them. Sometimes simply reflecting on these thoughts can help you let go of the guilt. It may be also helpful to do something specific like write a letter to your loved one or talk about it out loud. Um, the next the next phase in the grief process is depression. Once you come to terms with the reality of the loss, a deeper level of sadness may start to creep in. While this stage is called depression, it is important to know that this sadness or depression is not the same as what we call clinical depression experience. Even though you experience some of the same symptoms of a depressed disorder, like withdrawing from your daily activities or feeling like you are the black hole of sadness. These feelings of depression tend to come and go during grief. One way to distinguish between depression that is part of the grief process and clinical depression is to understand your symptoms and how you are experiencing them. When you are grieving, you might have a depressed mood for a few days and then feel better the next day. But with clinical depression, your depressed mood is ongoing, persistent, and accompanied by feelings of hopelessness and worthlessness. During grief, the sadness may also cause you to lose your appetite or be unable to sleep. If you find yourself that you are not only experiencing these things but also no longer have, for instance, joy, you may have decreased energy and have thoughts of death or self deletion. It's important to talk to a mental health professional for support. Okay. The next phase in the grief process is testing. The testing stage of the grieving process often involves trying out different things that help you to move forward. In this stage, you are starting to build your new normal as well, processing your feelings and emotions created by the loss. For this reason, it is possible to flow in and out of this phase or in other stages of the grief process to overlap with this one. As you start to move forward, you will start to experimenting with ways to better manage your feelings. For instance, you may think about joining a support group, start journaling, or consider trying something new, all which can help you learn to cope with your loss. In this stage, you are starting to acknowledge your new reality and find practical ways to cope. This looks different for everyone, so experimenting with new things can help you find the support you need. The final phase of grief is acceptance. Reaching the acceptance phase does not mean that you're okay with what happened. Instead, this part of the grieving process is more about accepting what your life looks like now. You will still need to listen to your feelings and adjust, but you will start to feel more whole, even if it looks different than what it did before. Keep in mind that grieving the loss of someone you love is often a lifelong process. But with acceptance, you learn to adjust to life without them physically here with you. There will still be good days and bad days, but you will start to feel more comfortable in your day to day life. You'll also be better equipped to tolerate uncomfortable emotions even when they catch you by surprise. So, the reason why I'm just discussing these phases of the grief process, because it's something that we all going to experience at different points of our life. Okay. Here on this platform, we discuss the problem, we analyze the problem, and then we try to come up with a solution. Um, in my case, unfortunately, I experienced the grief process multiple times with the passing of both my parents, four of my siblings, and now two of my nephews. Okay. Um, and of course, we all experience loss differently. Um, the loss of a parent is not the same as loss of a close friend or sibling. Okay. In my case, good evening, Irby. Thank you very much for stopping by. The topic for tonight is what is grief? So, what I just did was I discussed what are the seven phases of the grief process. We all going at some point experience that, okay? Um, Particularly as we get older, okay? And we move from, say, young adult age, and then we eventually move into what's called the sunset years, okay? Um, we will continue to lose loved ones, okay? And we will miss them very much, okay? And there'll be times when we will be sad that they're not physically here with us. Uh, I have tried to deal with the loss of my loved ones by applying the life lessons of which they share with me. Okay. So even though they're not physically here, they are in my heart, and they will continue to live in my heart. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, just give me a moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share an article. Okay. Just give me a moment. And again, let me just state for the record, the link to join the panel has been pinned. Okay. So just let's okay. So we already defined what is grief. So what we're going to do is we're going to show when grief can occur, and there's several examples. Okay. Okay. And it can be loss of several things. We can experience grief with the loss of a family, friend, partner, or even a pet. Okay. In fact, there is numerous videos on TikTok where a dog had to be put to sleep, so to speak, because of illness or advanced age. And quite a few of these people take their passing very hard because these animals, it's like losing a member of the family. Another way we can experience grief is the loss of a marriage, friendship, or another form of kinship. Okay. And unfortunately, many of the marriages do end up in divorce. Unfortunately, we have romantic relationships that end for multiple reasons. We will not discuss it here. We will discuss it at another stream. You can also experience the loss of your home, neighborhood, or community. You can also experience the loss of your job or career. Okay. Um, the fact of the matter is, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we had literally millions of livelihoods that were taken away because of COVID-19. You can also experience grief, financial stability. In other words, is being able to maintain yourself financially. You can also experience a loss of a dream or a goal. Okay. And sometimes there are certain situations where we have certain goals, we have certain aspirations that we have to put on hold or forego because there's a situation that requires our immediate attention. You can experience grief through the loss of good health. Okay. There are many of us who come inflicted with illness of various types or physical decline. Okay. You can also experience loss of your youth. Okay. Because as you get older, um, a lot of the things that you were able to do physically, you're no longer to do because your body is getting older and it may various health conditions occur. Also, the loss of fertility becoming sterile. Now, here, these are the 7 stages of grief. Okay, let me just make sure. Okay. So again, these are the 7 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression. Okay, well, okay, here are the 6. But what's common is you start with denial. Hopefully, you'll come to acceptance. Now, there are different types of grief. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share what are those different types of grief. The first one is called anticipatory grief. Anticipatory grief involves grieving before the actual loss. For example, you may begin to grieving when you learn that your loved one has a terminal illness. Processing grief beforehand can help prepare you to face the loss when the time comes. Still, it's important not allow grieving to distract you from enjoying the precious times that you do have. When my mother became hospitalized, unfortunately, it's part of the process. She experienced a stroke, with left my mother in a vegetative state, and she was not able to care for herself. So of course we had to deal with the fact that, barring a miracle, our mother would not get better, but slowly but surely passed. She passed away. Okay. Next one is called abbreviated grief. Sometimes you're able to move through the grieving process quickly. This is the cause with abbreviated grief. Abbreviated grief may follow anticipatory grief. You can grieve a loss quickly because you've already done a lot of emotional labor while anticipating that loss. Grieving for a short time doesn't mean that you never truly care about what you lost. – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – – The next example form of grief is delayed grief. Instead of experiencing the emotions that accompany grief immediately after a loss, you may feel that in days, weeks, months, even months later. In some instances, the shock of the loss pauses your body's ability to work through these emotions. Or you may be so busy handling the practical matters that accompany loss, like funerals and wills, that your body can't grieve until you handle these responsibilities. Another example is called inhibited grief. It involves repressing emotions. Most of us haven't been taught how to process or even recognize the confusing emotions that can help arise when we are grieving. As a result, many people who repress their emotions don't realize that they're doing so. Unfortunately, when you don't allow yourself to pause and feel these emotions, grief often shows the physical symptoms like an upset stomach, insomnia, anxiety, or even panic attacks. Cumulative grief. With cumulative grief, you're working through multiple losses at once. For example, not only are you grieving the loss of a child, you're also grieving the loss of a marriage that followed the loss. Grieving multiple losses simultaneously makes the process difficult and complex in unexpected ways. And we have collective grief. Most of us think of grief as personal, but collective groups grieves too. Many events like wars, natural disasters, school shootings, and pandemics create far-reaching losses. They change what counts as normal life. As a group, we grieve the shared experiences we lost as we struggle to imagine a changed future. Now let's deal with the symptoms of grief. Okay. I get it, it's kind of analytical, but we again we all this is to try to have some sort of an understanding regarding what is grief. Okay, okay. So there are emotional symptoms attached to this. People who are grieving often describe emotions coming in waves. They may feel as emotions wash over them without warning. One minute you may feel as you are back to normal, and the next you find yourself in tears. Grief causes people to experience the entire spectrum of emotions, from sadness to anger to joy. You may sometimes feel detached from your emotions and operate as you were an autopilot. And these are some of the emotions that you can experience. Sadness of a loved one that's gone, but the relief that they are at peace. Yearning for a spouse after a divorce, but also excitement. You get another shot of love. Guilt of feeling grateful that you no longer have to provide exhausting around the clock care for a dying relative. Competing feelings of apathy, anger, sadness, and regret as you grieve the loss of a family or friend, a friend or family member through a strange or hostile relationship. Now, there are various uh, physical symptoms attached to grief. Loss is an extreme stressor that can take a major or physical toll on your body. Grief can overwork your nervous system. It can cause a weakened immune system that makes it easier for you to get sick. And here are the symptoms: fatigue, headache, nausea, restlessness, upset stomach, heart palpitations, weak muscles or joint pain, tightness of your chest or throat, having reduced or increased appetite, trouble sleeping, insomnia, or sleeping too much. Okay. It doesn't mean that you're going to experience these symptoms, but some of these symptoms will appear. Now, of course, there are changes in behavior. Okay, and here we have some examples: confusion, trouble, or trouble thinking or making decisions, feeling as though you've lost a sense of hope or direction, difficulty focusing on anything other than your loss, difficulty remembering or keeping track of your responsibilities. Okay. These are things that can happen to any one of us as we go through the grieving process. And in real life, all grief is complex. In certain circumstances, however, grief can evolve into something even more complex. Complicated or prolonged grief. Complicated or prolonged grief often involves especially challenging circumstances or strange symptoms that interfere with daily life over a long period. Okay. And of course, there's absent grief, which is when you don't show any outward signs of grief. Sometimes you may not exhibit signs of grief because you're frozen or in denial. Other times, the person may not appear to be grieving, is privately working through complex emotions others can see. Then you have ambiguous loss. When there is a lack of closure around the loss, for example, it may be especially difficult to move through grief of a loved one is presumed dead, but their body isn't found. And ambiguous loss also include grieving a loved one who is still alive but feels out of reach. You may even grieve changes to create psychological distance from the loved one as well. Disenfranchised grief. When society does not consider loss worthy of grief, grieving can feel especially isolating when others signal that your grief is invalid. Examples include the death of a pet or the loss of a same-sex partner. Disenfranchised grief also involves death that society considers taboo, like deaths from suicide, self-deletion, or drug overdose. Now, we have seen, particularly on TikTok, again, people are really grieving over the loss of a pet. And we should not diminish their loss regardless. Okay. And when it comes to same-sex partners, I have disagreements regarding it, it does not take away the fact that they do experience loss as well. Traumatic grief, when you are processing loss and trauma at the same time. Traumatic grief involves losing losses that happen under horrific, unpredictable circumstances. Natural disasters, accidents, and violent deaths can all lead to trauma or even post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, when you need to process and seek treatment alongside grief. And here, there's a it can be grief considered complicated or prolonged when it's even a year and a loss and you still feel the loss is part of your loss or has died. You don't believe that death has occurred. Avoid reminders of death or loss. Experience intense emotions of emotional pain related to the loss that interfere with daily lives. Feel emotionally numb, lonely as your life doesn't have any meaning or purpose. Find it difficult to live life, make plans with friends, participate in activities and enjoy, or make decisions for the future. Now, here's an interesting question regarding how long grief will last. Um, I'm going to give you my personal opinion. You don't have to agree with it or what have you. That's perfectly fine. There is no expiration date for grief. It can be 5 years, it can last 5 days, 5 months, 5 years, or 5 centuries. Okay. It's important to remember that grief doesn't into neat boxes or timelines. Everyone grieve, and grieving timelines are different. Also, there's never a time when you're done with grief. Your connection with the loved one who passed away, dissolved marriage, or an abandoned dream, etc., becomes integrated into your ongoing life story. It's forever a part of who you are. So, if you're having trouble coping with this loss, especially when it's interfering with the ability to live your life, reach out to a grief counselor or a therapist. Now, the question is how to take care of yourself, how to cope with grief. Okay, let's see. I think we have a couple more comments. Okay, well, the fact of the matter is, everyone deals with grief differently. And there are people who have stronger mechanisms to deal with loss than others. So we need to bear that in mind. And these are things that we can do to take care of ourselves, which is practice self care. Taking care of your mind and body is essential when you're grieving. Prioritize getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep each night and take a nap if you need to recharge. Exercise and eat regularly and nutritious meals. Meditate or practice yoga. Take bubble baths, make caring for yourself a priority as you grieve, and don't feel guilty about it. Okay. Stick to a routine. Grief interrupts your sense of normalcy, disrupting your emotions in the process. Sticking to a routine is a good way to regain a sense of control and regulate your emotions. Go to bed and wake up at consistent times. Try to eat meals at the same time each day. Shower, tally each task you complete as a win. Also, attend to your emotions. Resist the urge to distract yourself from difficult emotions by getting lost in work or hobbies. Grieving requires dealing with painful emotions. Don't be ashamed to cry. Allow yourself to remember moments you shared with a loved one who is no longer in your life. Move your grief outward by expressing your feelings in ways that will make sense to you. For example, telling stories about your loved one or singing a song that reminds you of them, all ways to process difficult emotions. Reach out to others. One of the best ways to deal with loss is remind yourself the connections you still have. It's okay to need alone time when you are grieving, but don't isolate yourself. Remind yourself that not everything has changed, even if it feels like it. There are people in your life who love you and want to support you. Also, speak to a therapist or grief counselor. Sometimes working through grief requires professional help. If grief is interfering with the ability to live your life, or as your symptoms have not improved after 6 months, it may be time to reach out to a professional. Now, the last part here, we're going to talk about supporting a loved one who is grieving. Be present. Make yourself available based on your loved one's needs. No one, including your friend or family who is grieving, expecting you to be a grief expert or say the exact right thing. Being there for them is enough. Asking about their needs. Do they need to talk? A distraction. Help them make arrangements. Support them in the ways that they need help. Offer the help. Not everyone feels comfortable in asking for help even when they need it. Pay attention to ways you can assist and volunteer to help. Can you drive the kids to school, help with the laundry, cook or provide grocery gift cards to help keep everyone fed? Signal that you're open to talking. Pay attention to your loved one's cues about whether they like to talk about their loss. For example, you may feel it's awkward or sensitive to mention the name of the loved one who passed. Often, however, the person who's grieving is waiting for a signal that it's okay to share stories and process their feelings with others. If they do open up, listen more than you talk. Don't minimize someone's loss. Take care not to communicate that someone's loss wasn't a big deal or that they should move on already. And don't put a positive spin or loss either. Statements like, it's all for the best or they're in a better place now may be well intentioned, but it can sound dismissive to a person who is grieving. Instead, reaching out for silver linings allow your loved one to process their feelings honestly. It is a natural and necessary part of grieving. And we're gonna park this here. So, um, as you can see here, we have a great deal that we discuss. Okay, what we did was we discussed the phases of the grieving process. We discussed what's different types of grief, and we also discussed what we can do um, as we deal with the loss of a loved one or someone very important. There's certain things that we can do to help us, mainly take care of ourselves. Okay, make sure that we get our rest, make sure we eat, make sure that we have some sort of physical activity, and just try to take care of yourself. Okay, and actually, most of them loved ones, if there's anything that they will say is make sure that you take care of yourselves. Do the things that you need to do in order, to provide the care that you need. Okay, because of course sometimes it could be harder. Okay, particularly if we don't have the coping mechanisms needed to deal with the loss. Okay, now I've been speaking for almost an hour. Okay, so again, as I stated before, um, the link to join the panel has been pinned. Has anyone, if anyone wishes to join the panel, they can do so and express their own personal point of view. Or if they wish to express, you know, the loss of their loved ones and things of that nature. Okay. Or maybe you want to disagree with what was said, and can state that what I'm saying is not valid. Okay. In either way, you're more than welcome to join the panel to express your point of view. Okay. Um, also bear in mind that we need to be honest with ourselves. Um, with how what emotions we're dealing with. Sometimes the easier thing is to suppress them, and you're not doing yourself any favors when you do that. Um, and and this is okay. I don't claim to be an expert, but I have experienced loss multiple times in my lifetime, and I will continue to experience loss as I get older. Okay, so if no one wishes to join the panel or no one has any further comments, then we will start discussing what's going to be the topic for the stream for next week. Okay. Um, Now, I'm sure that people are saying, why do I keep discussing this topic? It is because the reality is this. As we age, we're going to experience the grieving process in multiple ways, on multiple occasions. And loss comes in many forms, not just the loss of a loved one, but also the loss of a romantic relationship. So these are the things that we need to bear in mind. Okay. Now, what I will do next week, I'm going to have another stream regarding humorous moments on this platform. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some of the funnier moments. Okay. Why? Because we have dealt with, first, we dealt with why people cannot stand um, Valentine's Day. Okay. And there are many reasons why, and we had the discussion, followed by uh, what is divorce, why people are getting divorces. And there are multiple reasons behind that. Okay. Unfortunately, you have certain individuals that don't care about accepting accountability for their actions. There's not much you can do except make sure you're accountable for your own actions. Okay. So, like I said, I will be doing a stream next week regarding funny moments on this platform. Okay. So hopefully my computer will be working fine so I can share those video clips. Okay. So what I will do is I'll probably share like about maybe two or three of these clips. I will be live next week on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. The time will be between 8:15 or 8:30. I don't like to do these streams past a certain time because let's keep it real. I need to go to bed and sleep, and people have other things that they need to do that occupies their time. Okay, but I do appreciate all those who watch from the clouds. I also appreciate all those of you who express words of condolences towards me regarding the passing of my nephew. Let me just say a few words in Spanish. Quiero agradecer todo el mundo que no ha compartido su pésame por la pérdida de mi sobrino Jimmy Santiago. Él fue un joven más o menos como 48 años y solamente quiero agradecer todo aquellos que no han hecho su pésame en los redes sociales. So, so with that being said, I'm gonna start to wrap this up. Okay. Um, we will continue. At whenever it's necessary, we will bring up the topic again because unfortunately the topic doesn't get old. We will continue to experience loss of loved ones. Okay, loss of friends, spouses, things of that nature. Okay. So hopefully you gain some knowledge regarding this topic. But in any case, I'm going to wrap this up. Now, I will state that we must do everything possible to minimize our content with a mentally and intellectually challenged. Because if we fail to do so, we will be infected by the stupidity and massive insanity. This has been another episode of Uncommon Sense with Jose Negron. I will be live Monday at 8:15 or maybe 8:30. We'll just have to wait and see. Um, but I do appreciate all of you who caught it live. And I would definitely appreciate the playback gang watching this on the playback. Of course, you're more than welcome to express your point of view, leaving your comments. Just keep it respectful, please. I don't want to have to delete anything that inappropriate content. So, with that being said, thank you very much. Take care. Uh, excuse me. Take care and peace and have a blessed night. Take care. Bye.